Okay, I am going to be talking today about the version 15 notebook front end. It's what I do, what I know the most about. And now that we're up and running, I'll go ahead and turn off my webcam. I don't think you'll need to see me so much here. Okay, so I'm going to talk for probably around about half an hour. I'll take a few questions relevant to the front end after my presentation, and then I'll stick around for the session but hand it off to Alan at that point to talk more about Wolfram AI Assistant. So that's our plan. In terms of our agenda here, here's a basic outline of some things that I want to cover. Improvements that we did to find and replace for 15. A feature, you won't quite know what this is yet, but you'll know it when I'll show it. What we refer to as a paper tear elision feature. I'm going to talk about visual themes and work that we did to add a sidebar to the front to notebooks and to add a chat bar to notebooks, and we'll get into more of those details as we walk through. So let's start off with find and replace. And the first thing to really know about find and replace is that it got faster. It got a lot faster. Um, and so just for comparison, I have a 14.3 here. You can see this is a 14.3, and I just copied and pasted this code. Let me run that. And now all I have is something I happen to know. This is a pretty large reference page on stream density plot. This is the help documentation. And there is a word that only appears close to the end of it. So let's go ahead and run that. I'm using Notebook Find programmatically here, but it's serving as a proxy for what would happen if I were to do this interactively. And you can see that took a long time. And how big of a notebook are we talking about? It's not small, about 155 megabytes. Um, Obviously, notebooks get bigger. You're going to be looking at even longer times. This had to search through the entire notebook. It might have returned faster if there were a hit at the top of the notebook, but yeah, this is a weird word. I happen to know in this case it only appears once. So let's close that up and run a comparison to, and boom. And that was 1.1 seconds. Basically, we're talking close, basically an order of magnitude difference between the two. And oops. Huh. Oh, because let me run it again so that I can show you the bike. There we go. So actually, even slightly larger in in the version 15 documentation. So let me go ahead and close that up. Okay, so what's going on here? And you'll notice here that I opened it fresh. And this is actually part of the problem. I want to just kind of demonstrate this so you can see what we're facing. And so here I've split out the open and the actual finding operation. So let's take a look at how these timings worked out. So in version 14.3, well, the open was super fast, just a fraction of a second. And find was chunk. There we go. Most of that time spent in find. Okay, and let's do the same thing here. And now, if we take a look, we see the open actually got a little slower. Is that a bad thing? That's not a bad thing. We'll get to why that is. But then once it was open, the find was just, super fast. So what is going on here? So yeah, um, Oh, and I just kind of duplicated some of my bits there. Sorry about that. Okay, so so in talking about this, I should say that there's actually two features I'm talking about here: find and replace, but also a brand new notebook parser. What do I mean by notebook parser? I mean this is the portion of the front end that knows how to read notebook files and then create the internal structures which correspond to the stuff that it finds in those files. Uh, so when I refer to the legacy notebook parser, I refer to the thing that we were using in 14.3, and it should be said had been substantially unchanged, tweaked a little bit here and there, but substantially unchanged for uh, well, some decades. It has some interesting properties. It's very fast to get a typical large notebook open, um, because notebooks are instrumented with some caching information, which helps. But when it opens a notebook, it only loads the pieces of the notebook from the file system that were actually needed. So, so this is this then starts to explain some of the things that we're seeing. Now, I didn't demonstrate this, but this is another kind of bit of behavior is when you have a large notebook, you can see some very chunky scrolling behavior. And the reason when you first open a notebook and scroll through it, and the reason for that chunky scrolling behavior is that pieces that were off screen literally had not been loaded from disk yet. And in the legacy parser, put off that that step as much as it can. But then when you need to display the notebook on screen, you need that stuff. So it would go out to disk and fetch it. Well, find is the worst case scenario of this because find requires effectively the equivalent of open every cell group, scroll all the way through. You got to see all the content. You got to see the content to know if there's something there. And so, really, when we talk about this zero point 0.2 seconds and this 8.8 seconds, uh, really a lot of this 8.8 seconds is still technically reading stuff from disk. Um, and I didn't set up timings just to convince ourselves otherwise. But I think if we had everything read from disk, this would have been not as fast as the version 15 front end, but it would have been a lot faster. Um, Also, an interesting property of the notebook parser is because we haven't read everything from disk yet, that means that bad things can happen if that file disappears. So what we have to do is we have to lock the file on disk so that nobody can touch it. Have you ever used notebooks in that were in Git repositories, and then you do a checkout or something like that? You ever used something like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive, and had a notebook that changed out from underneath you, and maybe, well, bad things could happen in the legacy parser. So this was stuff that had to be addressed, but it also had to be addressed in order to make find faster as well. So the new notebook parser in 15 reads the entire notebook into memory up front. So it doesn't matter if the file disappears on you. We've got it. What was it? The 0.6 seconds here to read the 156 megabyte file. That file is entirely in memory. So um, the parser itself is much faster. We rewrote the parser from scratch. And not only is it much faster, we actually were able to split up the parsing job for it to be multi-threaded. And what that means is all modern CPUs have multiple cores. And so if you can split your work into threads of operation that can run simultaneously, you're going to be better using your hardware. And that is how you make things fast in the modern world, is you try to make it multi-threaded, you try to parallelize it, and that's exactly what we've done. The parser also builds cached searching structures as it opens a notebook. So the parser is doing everything much, much faster, but it is also kind of setting up the notebook so that find will be super fast in the notebook. And then, yes, I referenced this. So no more file locking. The file can change on disk, and the front end can detect that. And if particularly if you've done anything, uh, you work with Git repositories and programming editors, you probably have some experience with how something like VS Code or Sublime Text or one of those programs will deal with files that change out from underneath you. And now we've thought about that. We're doing much the same with notebooks, which is to say that uh, you know we detect if you made local changes. If so, we'll let you know. You have some local changes that are different from what's on the file now. You get to make a choice about that. If you haven't made any local changes, then you get a chance to just update it in place. Okay, so uh, I demonstrated programmatic find, but let's take a look at interactive find uh, because we didn't just make things faster. We actually changed the interface, and I just let's see, and I can get rid of that now. Uh, and I just made a thing here which scrapes inputs and outputs from a reference guide page. So in this case, oops. So in this case, just all the inputs and outputs from the cosine reference page. These are all the examples and such. So you can see what we got here. And now I invoke find just like I did before. On Windows, I'm using Control F, Command F on Mac OS. And so let's search for cosine. And one of the things that you'll see is the find actually updates as I type. And you can see highlights that are happening on screen. You can see, these highlights that are matching here. If I type something more specific, so if I type in 30, then the highlights that the portions that no longer match will de-highlight. Things that continue to match will highlight. We also have a counter here, so we can see that in the case of cos bracket 30, there is exactly one hit. But if I were just looking for cos bracket, there are 202 hits. Um, so this was one of the reasons that we really wanted find to be super fast, because we wanted find to work basically with every keystroke, which means we don't want to be slowing down your typing. And so find has just got to be super, super, super fast. I probably should have magnified this a bit so you can see a bit better. Let me just do that real quick. Okay, so now if you want to replace, let me just do that again. So if you want to replace, you just click this opener here, and now you have a replace widget. And um, you know how find and replace works, or at least you think you do. There's one kind of interesting thing to note here. Let me just go ahead and do a replace all. I'm going to replace every instance of cos with sine, and let's see what happens. Okay, and so it worked. But wait, that's interesting. There's still 69 hits. What's that about? Is replace all broken? Well, not quite. This is something that we have sort of a unique problem in the notebook world. And let's just go looking for one of those hits. And I'll just use the next button, next hit, and we see it's actually in an output here. And so we decided, replacing an outputs, that's a bad idea. Outputs are generated things. If you want, if I wanted this to be updated, really what I should do is I should reevaluate the input. and then I would do that. So let's go ahead and do that. And so I reevaluate. Oh, by the way, notice 69 just dropped to 68. So I can be making changes on the fly here. Let's change that back to cos. And now we're up to 70. So I can keep this interface open, and it's letting me know interactively even as I type. Note here that the input and output highlights look a little different. And the reason for that, we're just trying to indicate that this output highlight, this is something that could be found, but it's not going to be replaced. And so we put a dash line around that to indicate that. And then this is a thing that can be replaced. And so now if I do my one at a time replace instead of replace all, it's done the one at a time, and now there are no more hits. So if I click again, no more hits. Okay. So the other controls here, we have find previous and find next, and they do have keyboard shortcuts. And I'm not going to dwell on those because you'll see this keyboard. If you use the product, you'll see the keyboard shortcut for your platform. These things are a bit different on platform. We have a toggle to match case. So right now, let's see if I change this to say lowercase. There are going to be 2 hits for lowercase cosine, but by default, it doesn't match case, and so it shows me the 69. And then match whole word. And look at that. There are a few hits that are not matching whole word because it dropped down to 64. So once you're done with this, you can close it up here, or frankly, I just use the escape key. Um, and you might think, well, that's interesting because doesn't escape do something? I thought, escape puts in that fun little character there that allows to type an alias. Yes, it does. You can still do that in find if you want to. But you have to press shift escape for that to work. Because frankly, we just thought that the escape key is much more valuable for dismissing. So, okay. And that is about find and replace. Let's go ahead and move on. Paper tear elision. What on earth am I talking about? Am I just putting random words together? Okay, so right click menu, elide with tear. Okay, and what we have here is we have something that looks like a paper tear. Um, and so the idea is it's just a lot of output. You don't need to see all of it. You want to see the beginning of it, and that's enough. This is also in the menus. Cell menu, elide with tear, can be toggled, as you can see. And when you've done this, you can actually resize it. And there we go. Basically, you can resize along the entire width of it. And this is a thing that looks great in light mode or dark mode. Let me just remove my toolbar from here. So let me just put it in another. Yeah. So there's a light mode version. Light mode version, you can see it looks more obviously like torn paper. In dark mode, we have to come up with sort of the effect of torn paper. But it's not actually. There isn't quite a real world analog in dark mode, so we synthesize that. Okay, this, by the way, this may be one of Stephen Wolfram's favorite features that we added to the front end in 15. He was a big fan of this. So just a few more details. This works for any kind of output. So graphics, you want graphics, no problem there. Just not an issue. and if I want to reevaluate this input, the paper tear is preserved. Even though because random color, it's producing actually different outputs each time. But the fact that I set the paper tear and the height that I chose to set it to is preserved through evaluation. Um, the uh, the effect. So, obviously there is a bit of randomness in determining the shape of this paper tear effect. It's deterministically random. What do I mean by that? It's for a given cell, it's always the same, but for any two cells, it will always be different. And so if I copy this and paste, 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 and you can see that that the shape is just a little different between these guys. Uh, b- but uh, but I can count on this particular shape. This isn't going to change like if I close and reopen the notebook, save and reopen the notebook, or if I send it to somebody else. Um, oh, and also, let me get rid of those. Also, controls still work through the illusion. There's hyperlinks or sliders or buttons or anything. So live with tear, and there we go. Everything still works. Peachy keen. Okay. Um, and so that is paper tear illusion. Visual themes. Okay, so we have, I just have a screenshot here of the preferences dialog for people who might be looking at this offline, but I can actually open the preferences dialog and we can see here that we have notebook themes. And you probably saw when I popped up that notebook earlier that it didn't quite look like you might expect. And that's because I'm running in the Cobalt theme. And let's just do, um, let's just make a little bit of a notebook here. And okay. And so I can change my global theme here. So, and some colors, anything that has a kind of specked color remains the same. Plot, the plot colors are they're made to look good basically against any sort of background. So the plot colors are always going to be the same, but you can see the way that syntax highlighting is done, the colors for the styles, and so on. There's Monokai. If you've used programming editors before, you might recognize that one. Dracula is another one that you might recognize. Um, and Wolfram default is exactly the thing that you're used to. So if you're like no changes, then then Wolfram default is the no changes one. But even here, we made a bright version and a muted version. Um, I'm not personally a particular fan of the muted one, but I don't know. As I get older, my eyes sometimes need more stimulation, so I kind of like the bright one. We also have for people who have been using the product for a while and might remember the back when we had the pastel style sheet and the natural color style sheet, and we did some of those. Now those don't look the same because those were light mode style sheets. But notice I just flipped to light mode now, and there we go. And this is something to know about here. So there are these, two screenshots. Every, or two thumbnails, I should say. Every one of these has every theme has a bright mode variant and a dark mode variant, and you can see there's a little sun here and a little moon there. And if I flip to dark mode, then it flips the order. So whichever one by default, or you're in by default, is the one that's on top. So, so that is some basic stuff about themes. Let's see what my slides tell me to say. Oh yes, visual theme, how it works. Okay, so the and oh, and I'm just going to flip it back to Cobalt because I like Cobalt. Okay, so um, the there are two things going on here. One of them existed actually in 14.3, this thing called theme color. And yes, we were kind of laying the groundwork in 14.3 for this to be done eventually in 15. So theme color is fully documented symbol. We had most of this stuff here in 14.3. We added some new values in 15. Basically, the most of the colors in our style sheets uh, are they're no longer hard coded. They're spec'd in terms of one of these colors. So, and theme color is how you do that, and and fully documented. Anyone can use it. And then we have a new option called notebook theme that is set at the notebook level or global level. And here we showed a few examples, but there are you saw the full list. There are more than that. And so let me just kind of show you a bit about how this works. So this is just a little bit of code that creates a grid that is these are just graphics with disks, and the disks are theme colored. And then I set the light dark to a toggler, and I set the notebook theme. So you can see these colors, like if you pay attention to accent one there, you will see that accent one changes quite a lot when you flip between them. So that's how this is implemented. And theme, color, and notebook theme, these are fully documented. Okay. Also, we added 14 in 14.3 when we added dark mode, we added this thing called light dark switched, and we added theme color as well. And one of the things that we did also is now we have color pickers that are aware of theme color and light dark switched. And I'm just taking advantage of the fact that when you typeset colors, you can click on them and get a color picker. And there we go. So now our standard color picker is allows you to, I can just choose an RGB value, let's choose another one, whatever. There we go. We have a dark color and a light color, but I can go back here and I can go back to theme color. I can choose another, and I can choose one of these theme colors here. Let's choose that one, that guy, and there we go. And now that's accent 3. So customized color pickers as well. Okay, and to conclude on the notebook themes thing, I showed you how you can set it globally, but you can also set it on a per notebook level too. And the sidebar allows you to do this. So the toolbar now has a sidebar section, and I'm going to actually do the one on the right here first, the gear icon. So let me open this guy up. Okay, and the sidebar, this is the notebook properties sidebar, and the notebook properties sidebar has various settings that you can change. I can set light dark mode. This is now all these settings are specific to this notebook. So anything I do here will be burned into this notebook. I can then come in here and say change this to bubblegum. Now, if I make a new notebook, it's still following my global default. This is something which will be set specifically in this notebook. And so, but also, if you're kind of playing with themes, you're trying to figure it out. It's kind of a useful thing for exploration. And it has various other settings too, spelling, kernel settings, AI settings, and so on. Okay, and I was going to use this just to open another copy to show the theming, but and why don't I just do that real quick, just so you can see kind of more code. More code being themed. So let's go ahead and set it to, let's say let's say Dracula, uh, and you can see dramatically different syntax highlighting. Still highlighting all the same things, but with different colors. Okay. Another thing you can do in the sidebar is you can start an LM chat, and you'll notice that this looks a lot like. Let me just bring up a new notebook for this. You'll notice that this looks a lot like um, the old palette for doing LM chats. Um, but this is a session which is basically attached to this notebook in terms of the context that it's looking at. So, uh, so let's have it do something here. And so it's basically just running the uh, the code here. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So now we have something here that is here's our simple hangman game, and it allows us to insert and evaluate. And since it's the sidebar for this notebook, it will insert wherever insertion point here is. So there we go. Except the LLM didn't get it right this time. Last time I tried it, the LLM nailed it. This time, not so much. I'm not going to go into details on that, but too bad. Maybe we can. So one of the things you could do is you can see your entire history, and here, let's do the one when they got it right. So let's just delete that. This one actually worked. There we go. Um, and um, and so we can see it's printing outputs there. And there we go. In this case, it's so simple that it actually just created a hard-coded word, which is Wolfram. And but the evaluation went awry. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Well, the session had to go wrong somehow, right? So let's just go ahead and restart there. Okay. Um, okay, I apologize for that, but we are almost at the end. Okay. And then I also wanted to talk about the chat bar. Okay, so um, one of the things that is new in 15 is actually, so we've had the Wolfram, we called it the Wolfram Notebook Assistant. It's now called the Wolfram AI Assistant. It's been around for a little while, since all of 14.3, at the end of 14.2 actually. And it was a subscription only plan. You had to pay to access it. In 15, that's no longer true. Everyone gets to access it. There are different subscription levels, but the basic level subscription is available to everyone who is using a Wolfram One or Mathematica product in version 15. And since everyone is using it, one of the things that we decided to do is we made sort of an omnipresent interface for doing chats, which we call the chat bar. So I'm just going to open up a notebook, and let me magnify here. Okay, so this is a chat bar right here, and it just floats over everything. And if you want to do something, uh, um, like that, And so basically all it's doing is it's just inserting a chat input cell into your notebook, although it will make sure to do it in a good place if your selection happens to be like between an input and an output cell. It knows to go down to the next output cell. So it creates and evaluates it in the appropriate place. It already evaluated it for me. Um, I can I can minimize this down to a speech bubble if the bar is annoying for some reason, and also it in the preferences dialog. You can control it in the preferences dialog as well. If you find this a little bit annoying, then you can get rid of it. So that is my presentation today. So I'm going to flip over and see what questions are out there. If you have any questions that you haven't asked about the front end, feel free to ask right now. And then, but I ran a little bit over, so I'm not going to stay. I'm not going to take verbal questions for too long, but I will stick around in the session and be answering questions in the Q&A chat. Okay. So um, the I'm just going to go through some of these quickly. Um, uh, Sorry if I maul your name. Wissam Barakat asks, "Are style sheets accessibility compliant?" And yes, yeah, well, I mean, if you're thinking about the visual themes, we put a lot of effort into the visual themes, making sure that, and there are some themes that have functional purpose where accessibility may not have been the purpose for that theme. Like there's a theme called Stargazer, which is like, you know, uh, you know, intended to kind of not destroy your night vision. That one's probably not greatly accessible, but uh, but yes, this is something that we've spent some effort looking into. Um, okay, so reading through some questions here. Um, okay, question from John Mercer about dark mode, where there have been graphics where lines have disappeared or uh, it looks like some students who are doing some work and disappeared when uh, uh, when done in light mode. Probably the what's going on here is and I'll just show an example of this is um, the let me just make a standard instead of Cobalt for this. Let me just flip to Wolfram default. So what they might have done here is they might have done something like this. Um, and of course that looks fine, but you flip it into light mode and you can't see anything. I think that's probably the sort of problem that you're talking about. There are a couple ways one can deal with this. Um, One is at the code level. Granted, your students won't necessarily know to do this. You won't necessarily want to edit their code, but this is something that could be done at the code level. Say automatic comma white because they're writing code in dark mode, and so now if I flip to light mode, it's going to automatically choose the opposite color. The other thing that could be done is there is a thing called uh, light dark auto color rules, and maybe we ought to make a WFR to do this. And I just brought this up in the options vector, light dark auto color rules, and I'm going to set it to automatic. And I think if I, having done that now, oh, but there's probably something I'm not remembering there, but there is something close to that, which I know I'll add something to the Q&A later. Let's see. George Woodrow asks, when will we get split notebooks? Um, I think George has asked me this probably many, many times. And uh, I'll tell you right now, these sidebars that you're looking at, this is like a step on the path. So we are working ourselves in that direction. Um, let's see. And I think somebody asked, Mark Greenberg asked, will paper terrorism also work on input cells? Absolutely, yes. Works on literally any kind of cell. So let me just to make that something a little bit longer so you can see it. And Lied with tear, there we go. It will even work on a title cell or a text cell if you wanted to for some reason. Um, uh, Jerry or Gary Schultz asks, when will we get regex support in findx or in find replace? It's something we're looking into. There's a bit of a challenge because not everything maps cleanly to strings because you have typesetting structures that you're searching through. But it's something that we're looking into. And I think at this point, I am going to stop with the verbal answers, but I will keep answering questions in the Q&A chat. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand off to Alan now.
Okay, it would help if I turn my mic off. All right, thanks, John. That was fascinating, and I always love coming to these talks because I end up learning about a whole bunch of things that I didn't really know how to use. So it's great to see. So John has given a little bit of an intro just to the sidebar, the chat bars, how those things work in terms of the interface. I'm going to talk a little bit more, although I'm going to try to keep the examples relatively light and not go super deep into a lot of details about how to use things, but try to give people a little bit more of a sense of what you can do with AI Assistant. As John mentioned, now with version 15, everybody has access to AI Access Basic. So the chat bar at the bottom of the screen, the sidebar, you don't have to bring your own API key for some external LLM to work in your notebooks. We're providing something to everybody through AI Access. Everybody gets basic by default. You can upgrade to Pro, which gives you a better model. Although I will also note that in the wake of 15 going out, we're looking at what are people doing with AI Assistant. What kind of feedback people are coming in, and we're certainly keeping an eye on what are the actual costs of us using different models to help serve AI Assistant. So we're trying to make sure that we're always providing people the best LLM under the hood that we can to help them with the kinds of things they want to do in the Wolfram language. So, AI Assistant, we had Notebook Assistant before. AI Assistant is building on that. The new interface elements certainly make it a lot easier. And just having access right off the bat to some AI support is I think a game changer for everybody. So for people who are really familiar with working in notebooks, with working with the Wolfram language, you're going to have different kinds of interactions than somebody who's coming to Wolfram fresh. And certainly, I think for new users, it's particularly helpful. Just in a sense, it's a whole new way of accessing documentation. Just how do I do this kind of thing, and having the AI not just tell you can go here and read this documentation page, but here I can look at examples, I can write you some code, I can fine tune this to your particular use case and give you something you can run in a notebook. Looking at code that other people have written and being able to use AI to annotate, explain, diagnose problems in particular code where you might spend more time just trying to figure out what's going on. helping with writing tests for code that you got, and certainly accessing Wolfram Alpha and other data that's in the Wolfram knowledge base, and pulling curated data into any of your workflows. So a lot of benefits to people here. I've pre-run a lot of examples. I can't think of anything less exciting than watching someone wait for AI to generate a response. So I've run a bunch of things here. If there's time and there's need to do so, we could maybe do some live things in the Q&A. But just to give people a quick example of a lot of the different ways that you can use the AI assistant. Certainly just going from a chat cell and something like, I want to train a classifier on this example data set, and then do a little bit more of analysis on that. The AI assistant will go off. It's getting some context under the hood from working with a RAG, a vector database of all of the Wolfram language documentation and other supplemental information, figuring out, getting hints about how to write good Wolfram language code. It's writing that code, and then it's passing that data back to the LLM, and then it produces a response. So it's incorporating actual code. It's giving you some explanation of what it's doing. It can evaluate the code itself and then show the results in the chat. Once you get some code here, then as John noted, you can insert and evaluate that code into the notebook yourself, and then copy it, edit it, revise it as you want, and keep building on that. The AI assistant also, it's not just looking at Wolfram language documentation. It's not just sort of a glorified doc search. It also has access to things in the Wolfram function repository and data repository, Packlet repository. So all this other, extra code and content that people from Wolfram or some of you may have contributed to those repositories, but the assistant can say, what's the best tool for this task, and can go out and say, oh, there's actually a WFR item for producing a decision boundary plot, and sort of take this question from me and say, okay, let's build some sample data. I know how to use this function, and then we can insert, run that code, get the results, and then you can take it from there and build on that. Another thing that I know a lot of people find really useful is what went wrong here. Whether you're new to writing Wolfram language code or you're very experienced, certainly being able to say, here's a chunk of code, this isn't working, I want to get a different kind of result from that, what's going wrong? I mean, this is kind of a trivial case here, and many of you, if you're familiar with Wolfram language, already know what's wrong. But to be able to say, I've got this code, I'm trying to do this calculation, this isn't what I expected, what's wrong? And it's going to say, this is, you're using quantity here, but you're using a unitless number elsewhere, and that's not how this works. Gives you an explanation of how quantity works, and then here's how you correct the code. Also saying, you don't even need to know how to write a quantity expression. You can use natural language input, which is going to parse to the right quantity object. So being able to go through and use the AI assistant to debug and explain and correct code is a huge help. Similarly here, you've got a chunk of code, maybe it works, but you don't know how. Rewrite it. Just give me the same code, but go through and add comments so that I can understand what's happening at each step. And so even for people who are working with the basic AI assistant, this is the kind of stuff that is really, really powerful and really helpful to somebody who's just getting into Wolfram language, and certainly for experienced users, the assistants with right in the middle of the notebook, being able to do some debugging, writing tests, getting explanations for how things are working is a huge help. Sidebar chat, John also showed. I think this is enormously helpful, and I think sometimes people may be a little bit confused about why would I want to use the chat bar versus the sidebar. The chat bar right in the notebook is really helpful if you're kind of incrementally building up a notebook, or you're really kind of doing an exploration and you want to have the code there, you want to edit code, you want to go back and revise it, you want to revise questions you asked previously and run them again. Sidebar gets super helpful when you want to ask questions that are using the current notebook you're working in as context, or you want to test code and just kind of go through iterations in the sidebar. And then when you've got it to the point that it's ready, then you can just insert it into the notebook you're working in at the right place. Or just general research, revising text, asking questions, any kind of exploratory work that you don't necessarily want to preserve. Although, as John also showed, your chat history is saved in the sidebar. But just for some examples, like, say you've got a table of data, and I'm just pulling open a chat I had run before. You can, in this case, you have to make sure you pay attention to this box here, which by default is saying ignore the notebook content. So when you pop open the sidebar, generally you're going to ask a question, and the AI assistant is just going to pay attention to your question. It's not looking at the notebook by default. But you can uncheck that, and then that gives the AI assistant whatever you've got in the notebook, or if you select cells, I think, then just those cells are fed in as context to that question. So in this case, I'm asking it to take a look at this data. It's running some more writing and evaluating some Wolfram language code, giving me the results, and then generally, which I really appreciate, offering some suggestions. One of the things that I think people sometimes struggle with is, I've done this, but what next? What else can I do? And getting suggestions to say, I can also give you code to do this. I can ask some more questions, and you can let the AI assistant interview you and try and figure out what's going to be useful to you, and kind of work together on that. Also, something like this, like I've got a whole lot of messy data, and what I'd like is some code that's going to go through and clean that up and just turn these things into some consistent numbers. So the AI assistant wrote some code. It's not the greatest code in the world, but it gets the job done. It's writing a simple parser for this, and then telling me what I should expect when it runs. So I can take this code, insert and evaluate it. It's creating that function, and then I can test that on my input. And yeah, it's just turned these into numbers. It's done something to say, oh, if it's in parentheses, that's a negative. So this kind of thing, where you want to, you've got some kind of operation you want to do. That you want a function that does X, but you're not quite sure how to accomplish X. The AI assistant is going to do a great job of helping you to create that code. Chatbook cells. So then you've got the sidebar. Why would you want to use the chat cells themselves? I find this, it depends on kind of what you're trying to accomplish. When you're doing, not necessarily producing a notebook for presentation, a final sort of computational notebook. I find it really useful in some cases for exploratory work to be going this way, because I am going to be jumping back and forth between different sections. I might want to rerun some chats. I get a result that is almost there, but I want to tweak something about the input. So just as a kind of a brief demo, here's another case where I've just got some data. It's dates and counts of orders for a business, say. So I can say, I've got this. This is the kind of data. I'd like to get a quick summary of this and generate a plot so I can see a trend. And so the assistant goes off, writes some Wolfram language code, evaluates it, does kind of a good, quick, general summary of data here to, this is the date range, this is how many days, total orders, some basic stats, generating a plot, and giving sort of a rough, narrative sense of what's this plot showing. Again, kind of giving some suggestions, but then I could say, where are the outliers in this data? And then, okay, the assistant, picks a reasonable heuristic for figuring this out, goes through, gives me which days are kind of most, higher or lower than the local trend. And then I could go a little further with that and say, okay, that's interesting. Now, can you just mark those on the plot? So going back to the initial plot that it generated, modifying that, adding in some of the data that it got from an intermediate step, and this is just kind of a really useful way to build up an analysis or build up an understanding of some data, but also to kind of build up an understanding of how the code works. You can go through here, you could insert the code for any step and, take over yourself and just start building on the code that's been, laid down as a baseline, or continue working with the assistant to improve and expand on what it's generated. I'm going to talk very briefly about the LLM functions. So let me. These have been around for a while. So LLM synthesize, LLM function. There's a whole host of things that allow you to access AI functionality, but in a programmatic way. So you can write functions that you're going to be able to use for programmatic work. LLM synthesize, just text generation. So you feed in a prompt, it could be a templated prompt, and then you've got a function that you can just apply to other kinds of inputs and rerun that over time to generate a lot of output following on from a specific kind of reusable prompt. LLM function, LLM resource function, and example function. There are some useful resources in those repositories. The thing that I think sometimes people don't realize right off the bat is this stuff can be confusing until you sort of build up an intuition for how to work effectively with AI tools under the hood and integrate it into code. But you can use the AI assistant to help you figure that out. So taking an example, like I've got some customer comments, and I want to have a function that I can apply that's going to classify things, do some sentiment analysis, and try to sort of more roughly categorize those things and make a topic classification. So here, and worth noting, sometimes the LLM is going to try something and it's not going to work. And so the AI assistant is going to get output and it sees, oh, there's some faileds, something here went wrong. So it can look at that and say, that was a problem. I'm going to rewrite that code and keep working at this until it gets something that works. So here, this is relatively simple, but it's an LLM function, a basic prompt, and then it's going to just take that, append whatever the individual feedback is to that prompt, feed that to the LLM. In this case, again, this is something that now you're getting for free with AI access. So used to be you would have to bring your own API key for some other LLM service or subscribe to a plan with us, but everybody gets this by default. So you've got a basic model again that you can use to play around with things like LLM function. So we can take this and let me insert that. So it's evaluating that function, and then I can test that on the feedback I provided initially. So now it's going to make live calls to the AI assistant, and then this is why I wanted to evaluate everything, but this I wanted to at least run live. I think this is the last feedback. in any event. It should work. Yep. So then what you get out of that is a nice structured data set for each of those inputs. You've got sentiment analysis, an initial pass from the LLM to assign a general topic to the thing. And you could imagine going through this and sort of starting to build up more of a controlled vocabulary for, what are the acceptable set of topics? And then you could feed those back into that prompt, have the LLM say, choose a topic from this list instead of make up a topic each time. And you've got something that's reusable, and you can just keep building up and running on other data. Wolfram MCP. I do want to spend a little bit of time on this. It's not strictly AI assistant, but it is something that the cloud version of this is something that's free to everybody, whether you've got a Wolfram product or not. And the local MCP is something that is free to anybody who's got Mathematica Wolfram 1. This is something that there's an easy way to install that from the app. And this, instead of AI Assistant sort of being a way to bring AI into Wolfram, MCP is a way to bring Wolfram into other AI clients and apps and harnesses. So maybe I can pause here. Can we put up the, I was curious to get the poll about whether people have used Cloud MCP. And I'm not sure if that's up or not.
Yep, that poll is open.
Thanks. Great. Okay. Well, oh, sorry. There was, we were at 50% because 2 people had answered, I think. Okay. We'll let this run for a while. I'm curious. I'm not surprised. We've promoted this a bit, but probably not enough. But yeah, this is completely free, no authentication. You don't have to sign into anything. And what this is doing is providing 3 different tools to another chat client. So you can go to ChatGPT on the web or in the desktop app. Same with Claude on the web or in the desktop app. And we're in their repositories of plugins for ChatGPT or connectors for Claude. You just need to go there, and if you search for Wolfram, we will pop up, and you basically click a button, and then Wolfram is enabled in your chat sessions. So what these are providing are 3 different tools for the cloud version. So there's Wolfram Context. This is the thing that sort of makes this more kind of AI assistant adjacent. This is the part that is providing hints and suggestions to the LLM to help it write better Wolfram language code or make Wolfram alpha queries. I mean, any strong current model is already going to do a pretty good job of writing Wolfram language code, but it can be even better, quicker to come up with a good final result. More efficient code being written, saving time, saving tokens, all of this by using this tool. And then there's a Wolfram Language Evaluator, which is going to give the LLM the ability to evaluate any Wolfram language code it writes in the Wolfram Cloud. And also a Wolfram Alpha tool just to retrieve results from Wolfram Alpha using an LLM-friendly API. So, easy to install those things. And the way that ends up working is, in Claude, you've got connectors, and you just need to, if you have Wolfram enabled, then you don't have to say with Wolfram, but generally it's not a bad idea to specify with any LLM where you're using the MCP server that you want to specifically use us, because you might have other tools that can do some similar things, There may be built-in capabilities for some of the LLMs that will try to take a different route to do things, but saying do it with Wolfram and it will find the right tools, it'll evaluate code in Wolfram language and return results. There are some differences just in the clients, like Claude, for example, is very cautious about showing images that come back from remote MCP servers. ChatGPT, you can do the same input and it'll show the rendered image in line. There just are always going to be differences, and these are the kinds of things that sort of change all the time with any of these clients, just because everybody is moving so fast in this space. But anything you can do with a Wolfram kernel or data that's available through Wolfram Alpha, you can give the LLM the ability to access this and pull it right into chat sessions. Do we have the local MCP poll up also? So I would expect this to be even less familiar, but we have another poll to ask about this one. So local MCP. This is something when you load up version 15, there's going to be a link right from the welcome screen, but you can go into settings and there's a new services for AI section. And what this is doing is looking for which other AI clients and environments have been set up on your system already. So if you've got Anti-Gravity, Claude Code, Claude Desktop, any of these, and there's a much longer list. All you need to do is say, yes, I want to enable the local MCP server for that, and this then will write the correct little bit of a few lines that get added to a config file for any one of these clients will get written in, and then that app or harness environment can directly access your local Wolfram kernel. And that's what's happening under the hood. There's some more control over installation with deploy agent tools. Again, a new in 15 function. So if you're familiar with this, you've got the ability to specify, I only want to deploy this into for a specific project with this specific client. So there's a lot of different levels of control you can exercise over that. And this also can expose more Wolfram tools. The remote MCP server is just kind of Wolfram context, this default case, sort of hints for using Wolfram, evaluate Wolfram language code, get data from Wolfram Alpha. You could have a flavor that's really just Wolfram Alpha, how to write good queries for Wolfram Alpha and make those queries. If you're working with any of these things, like if you're working in VS Code with some command line, Claude Code or anything else, you're working in a Claude Code or the Codex apps, what you're going to want and what's going to be installed by default is the Wolfram language version. And so this is much more Wolfram language focused. Wolfram language context, something that evaluates Wolfram language code, the ability to read and write notebooks, and also some other tools with Code Inspector, helping with reviewing code that's been written by the LLM, getting more information about specific symbols, test reports. So there's a lot of additional functionality that's available here. So I wanted to show a couple of quick examples with the local MCP server. And one thing right off the bat that's important to note here is, so this is the Claude desktop app, and I have the Wolfram local MCP server installed here. This is the remote one, so I've turned that off because I want to use the local MCP server. So what's happening under the hood here, when I say plot a sine curve with Wolfram, it's doing the same kind of thing the remote one does. It's finding tools, and then it's running some query. But instead of calling out to Wolfram Cloud, this is actually connected to the kernel running on my computer. So this is evaluating this code in a kernel on this same machine that I'm on right now and returning the results. What this also means is, instead of like with Claude on the web or ChatGPT on the web, you're not just getting a rasterized image of the output. You're getting something that this is basically the notebook right here in the middle of your session with Claude. And you can build on that. You could say, I'd like a manipulate of that, make it interactive. And then you can have, it will render, it's still sort of more cloud notebook type functionality. So it's not quite as responsive as directly in a local notebook, but still you have the ability to, incorporate interactive results in here. What I think the real power of using the local MCP server isn't just sort of one-off chat sessions where you're having a chat with Claude or with Codex or whatever. But when you've got data, you've got real projects that you want to work on. So this is kind of a sample case. I'm using Claude Code here. And so I've opened up, I have a folder that has a handful of files in it. And I'm telling Claude, there's this file, it's the New York City squirrel census. It's in this folder. I want you to use Wolfram, import it, give me a sense of what's in it. So it's going out, finding the right tools, writing some Wolfram code, and it's doing, straightforward stuff. Import the data, dimensions, give me a look for a header row, first couple of rows in the table, and it's, coming back and giving a summary of what's in there. Doing a little, using, LLM magic to do a little bit further grouping of those fields, kind of infer what kind of data is in there, what categories are they in. Here's data on some example row. But then I can say, okay, give me a plot of this. I want to see all the sightings on a map of Central Park colored by the squirrel's fur color. So it's going in, it's getting the data, it's getting, coordinates data. Again, it's, sometimes it's running into problems, and it's getting information back from the Wolfram Language Evaluator, like it tried to use an option that doesn't exist for geographics. And so it's saying, oh, that's not right. I'm going to run this a different way. And then I end up with a very nice map that's making use of geographics. It's using our mapping functionality. This is all Wolfram language code and a rendered map here. And then that's also saved into that folder that I've been working in. So I'm not just sort of building up little ephemeral artifacts in a chat session. I'm really producing things that are getting saved into a folder. I've got stuff that I can build on, I can put together, I can assemble more later. So I can keep asking questions. Where were they seen? Give me sort of sightings per day, and we can sort of break this. It's broken this up into sightings PM and AM. I can ask about what else? What were they doing? What do squirrels do? They forage, they eat, they run, they climb, and they chase, apparently. So I've got a plot there. And then, we're building up some analysis. There's code in the chat. There are images that have been generated. But really, eventually I want to get kind of a notebook that I can share. So I can say, let's collect all of this. Give me a nice Wolfram notebook that's got my my great scroll report, and it can write this out. So I've got a very nice, clean Wolfram language notebook. I've got all the sort of steps we've gone through. Here's the source, here's the data, incorporating any of the maps and other visualizations we've generated, adding in a little bit of extra content here. And then this is the kind of thing you can continue to build on and say, I want to add some more sections to this. I want to revise. I'm going to take this over and I'm just going to do some more manual edits to this myself to move on. but this is really, really a powerful thing. I don't think enough people have sort of played around with this and figured out how to take advantage of all the things you can do by plugging a Wolfram kernel into any of these other AI tools that people are exploring right now. I have one other very cool example I just wanted to do. This is, we have starting to publish some AI skills in a repo on GitHub. So these are just sort of, they're markdown files that just describe a workflow for an LLM. And so I'm saying, I've got this skill, it's the Astro Observation Planner. It's some sample Wolfram language code and a workflow for generating a lot of data for viewing astronomical objects on a particular date. So it's using our knowledge base, it's using a lot of Astro functionality, it's pulling in rise and set times for planets, for deep sky objects, you know, giving me an analysis of sort of where to look and when, and you can get through all that, and then even do things like say, you know, I'd like this to be in a nice, you know, deploy this to Wolfram Cloud, give me a nice HTML page that summarizes all the data that we've generated, and then you've got something that you can share. You can take this, you know, look at it on your phone later, but just some really cool things that you can do. And I'm excited to see more people get familiar with what you can do by plugging all of our computational abilities into other AI tools, as well as you know, using AI to help you become a better Wolfram language developer yourself. I think I'll stop sharing now, and let me take a minute to look at questions here. Sorry, how the native AI, I've got a question from John Mercer. Any recommendation about how the native AI might collaborate with external LLM like Codex or Claude? I'm not sure I understand the question there. If that's the AI assistant using other AIs. I mean, we are working right now on, if you're familiar with ACP, with that technology, and making that available so people can do more kinds of programmatic, complex orchestration of AI agents from within the Wolfram language. So I think if that's what you're talking about, there is some work that's coming there. George Woodrow, what do you find useful in your work as the AI finding stuff in the documentation I forgot or never knew? Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, that part, I remember, I know that we can do this thing, but I don't remember exactly how to do this thing. You know, I forget how to write a particular option for a function. That kind of thing, I think, is enormously helpful, and I absolutely share your sense of not wanting to completely offload your coding knowledge to an LLM. I think if you have specific examples of code that's wonky, I'd be really interested to get those feedbacks, because those are the kinds of things that we really want to get more feedback from people about. When things go wrong, are there things there that we can do to improve the AI assistant's prompting and kind of internal working so that it does write better code for people? Maybe I'll pause. We were really close to the end. I can try to answer a few more questions on the sidebar, but I don't know if John had anything else that was coming in that you wanted to kind of speak to while we've got a few minutes here.
I think I answered all the questions that I intended to answer, although did we end up putting no, I guess we didn't. I had tried to put together a poll at the last minute, but it wasn't very well prepared. So no, I don't think anything else.
Okay. Guylaine Grelot. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Can LLM functions now be used without subscribing to an external AI? Right, as I was mentioning before, the by default the AI access subscription, that's also going to be the underlying AI that's used for LLM functions. Sorry. Using the local Wolfram local MCP with Claude is great. One cool thing, Claude is able to use Wolfram to run Windows commands that it couldn't run on its own. Yes, that's, well, both a blessing and a curse there. I think that you, as with anything, you need to be careful and pay attention whenever the LLM is saying, hey, do I have your permission to do this thing? Because it will find ways to do things that you might otherwise think it couldn't do. But yeah, I mean, the having access to Wolfram, and again, the local MCP server, if you can do it with your local Wolfram installation, then Claude or Codex or whatever can pretty much do all the same things. You're missing out on all of the great interactive stuff that you can get in the front end, but in terms of pure computation and just being able to run things in the kernel, it opens up a whole world of other capabilities. Does the handout show details of connecting the Wolfram MCP to Claude, or is it all in the documentation? Again, if you go to that, in the settings, you can go there. If you've got Claude code installed on your system, that should be detected, and you really just say enable this for Claude, and it's in there. Is the AI assistant also capable of developing Modelica code for System Modeler or other software? It certainly is aware of and is able to directly use the system model functionality that's available in the kernel for Mathematica, for the Wolfram app. I also will give a shout out to the System Modeler team, who just released a package of agent skills for System Modeler. And I was trying those out earlier this week. And it's another case where I think for people who have maybe struggled to become more competent in using System Modeler, it opens up a whole new world of, it lowers the bar to entry for working directly with the System Modeler app. But sort of short answer, yes, AI Assistant can help with System Modeler related stuff that can be run in a regular Wolfram notebook. And there are also other AI tools that the System Modeler team is developing and pushing out independently and kind of in collaboration with us. We're right at the end, so I think I'm going to stop there. But thanks everybody for coming. It's great to see so many people turn out.
Thanks,
Yes.
Alan.
Yes, and thank you as well. Yeah.
Yep, and John as well. And boy, we've had a lot of activity, and people are very engaged with the topic. So that's gratifying to see, and thanks to everybody who's been responding to questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like a certificate of attendance from today's event, you can request that on our webinar survey form. We're putting that link up, and that link should also show up as we close the session today. Thanks for attending. That survey is a place where you can you have an opportunity to submit any other feedback or questions that you didn't get to answer. We've tried to answer everything that's open here, but we'll be glad to follow up with you if you want to communicate with us and share your feedback on that survey. So please do so. We hope we see you at another WolframU event soon. Thanks, everybody, and we'll say bye for now.